Hustle culture has become very popular. Work hard, be disciplined, outwork everyone, achieve something impressive, then enjoy the fruits of your labor. There is something appealing about this. It sounds clean, almost mathematical. Put enough effort into the machine, and eventually success comes out the other side. But the entire philosophy leaves out the most important question. What? What are you working hard at? What are you sacrificing for? What are you trying to become excellent at? And perhaps more importantly, why this? Hustle culture rarely seems interested in these questions. The work itself is almost secondary. Working hard has become the subject. Success has become detached from the thing you succeed at. You just need evidence that you have succeeded. Money, status, followers, a company, a title, a body. Something visible enough that other people can recognize the achievement without having to understand the life behind it. And once success becomes an image rather than the consequence of a particular devotion, people naturally begin searching for the shortest route toward the image. They look for techniques, systems, morning routines, productivity frameworks, business models, growth hacks. Someone successful wakes up at 5, so they wake up at 5. Someone successful journals, so they journal. Someone successful posts 4 times a day, so they begin posting 4 times a day. The visible behavior is copied because the invisible cause cannot be copied. And this is where most advice about success begins to become useless. You see somebody work 12 hours a day and conclude that the 12-hour days made them successful. Perhaps they did. But you have ignored the more interesting question. Why were they willing to work 12 hours a day in the first place? You see someone spend 10 years becoming extraordinarily good at something and conclude that persistence is the secret. But persistence is not an explanation. It is another thing that needs explaining. Why did they persist? Why this particular thing? Why were they able to tolerate years of uncertainty, boredom, embarrassment, and failure when thousands of others abandoned it? There is a tendency to answer these questions with discipline, as though discipline is some substance certain people possess in unusually large quantities. But I suspect many people who appear exceptionally disciplined are not experiencing their behavior in the way an outsider imagines. From the outside, obsession often looks like discipline. A person spends every evening writing, and we call them disciplined. A founder thinks about the same problem for 10 years, and we call them driven. A musician plays the same piece hundreds of times, and we admire their work ethic. But perhaps the deeper truth is that they simply cannot leave the thing alone. Something keeps pulling them back. Something in the work produces this extraordinary effort. Curiosity, beauty, meaning, escape, recognition. The reasons differ. You can grind at something you dislike for a while. You can force yourself into the gym. Force yourself to build the business. Force yourself to keep going. And sometimes force is useful. But force is expensive. Eventually, you begin negotiating with yourself. You need motivation, rewards, accountability systems, habit trackers, consequences. There is a limit to how long a human being can build a life through self-coercion, especially when the thing being pursued was never truly theirs to begin with. This is the part that hustle culture rarely asks you to examine. You may not have a discipline problem. You may simply not have found something you care enough about. And that possibility is far more uncomfortable, because a lack of discipline seemingly has endless solutions. You can download another app, read another book, create another morning routine. But if the problem is that you do not actually want the life you're forcing yourself toward, then the entire project has to be questioned. Perhaps you do not want to become wealthy badly enough to accept what your chosen route demands. Perhaps you want the admiration associated with mastery without being sufficiently interested in any craft to spend 10 years mastering one. This is why so much success advice feels hollow. It teaches you how to reproduce the behavior of people whose desires you do not share. And then it tells you that your inability to sustain that behavior is a character flaw. But you cannot borrow another person's obsession. You can copy their schedule. You can copy their diet. You can copy their business model. You cannot copy the thing that made them care. And that thing may be the greatest competitive advantage of all. To be deeply infatuated with your craft. Not because passion magically guarantees success. It does not. The world does not owe you anything because you enjoy what you do. But someone who is genuinely compelled by a problem can tolerate a degree of repetition that feels absurd to everyone else. They notice details others overlook. They return after failure without needing to manufacture a reason. They think about the work when they're not supposed to be working. They stay with questions long after the novelty has disappeared. Over enough time, this becomes difficult to compete with. Not because they have discovered the perfect productivity system, but because what feels like sacrifice to somebody else is partly what they wanted to be doing anyway. So perhaps hustling does work. But when something works for a long time, the hustle is often not the cause. It is the symptom. You are seeing hours, sacrifice, repetition. The person who appears willing to work harder than everyone around them. What you cannot see is the private relationship they have with the thing itself. The fascination, the compulsion, the need to know, the inability to leave it alone. That is much harder to package into advice. There is no 5-step framework for becoming genuinely interested in something. And there is certainly no guarantee that the thing which captures you will be prestigious, profitable, or impressive. Discipline is not the point. The obsession is. Sincerely, Milo Morrison.